it was something that kind of struck me. She said at the time she was feeling so lonely and that she just wanted to talk to another person. And she said, so she could go from feeling invisible to visible. Hi, I'm Abi Murray, and you're entering a world gone good.
Well, hello, my name's Steve, and this is the place where we shine the light on everyday people making good happen each and every day. Welcome to World Gone Good. Yes, World Gone Good, the place where we shine the light into the darkness. And I gotta be honest here, there's been quite a bit of darkness lately, right? Am I wrong? Am I close? Am I nearby? It's been dim, but the light is on. It's on bright right here. And we're hoping that we can somehow, weekly, every Wednesday, remind you that the world is still good. And the way we do it is we bring you brand new guests every week, sharing their good, and hopefully it shines some light in your world, and you'll go out and do some good. Maybe you'll wind up on this show. I don't know. Hit me up. You never know when it can happen here on World Gone Good. But we know our mission. Our mission is to not be Pollyannas, to keep it real, be realistic, but keep it good. So welcome to World Gone Good. Okay, so today I have a cold, as you can possibly hear. I'm just getting over it. We are back in the UK. I get back to the board in front of me that has the words. And getting our Chatter and Natter times on. Let me just start that from the beginning so you feel that how well I wrote that. Okay, so today we are back in the UK and getting our Chatter and Natter times on. Do you love how I just delivered that? If you have no idea what a natter is, hang tight, because our oh-so-good guests will get you up to speed in just a minute here. Before we get to that, let's talk loneliness. Damn, I just brought the room down pretty fast, didn't I? It's a gift. According to a Gallup survey of over 140 countries, feelings of loneliness affect close to 24% of our global population. 24%. And the World Health Organization recognizes it as a serious public health problem with detrimental impacts on our physical and mental health. I'm really shining the light. Okay, gonna keep going, pushing through. Further, the WHO, World Health Organization, recommends high-quality connections, like you and me right now, as an essential way to combat these feelings and for our overall well-being. So to put this bluntly, we need each other, people. We need each other. And you know what else we need? A good cup of coffee. Or tea. We are based in London now, so it's probably going to be tea. Good conversation over a good cup of cuppa is exactly what the Chatty Cafe Scheme is all about. It all started on a wet and windy day, which seems appropriate for London, when co-founder Alex Hoskyn found herself inside a cafe with her 4-month-old son, and she was feeling a little fed up with her own life and perhaps life in general. And now, I'm going to go ahead and let Alex's sister Abi, co-founder of the Chatty Cafe Scheme, take it from here. Here comes Abi Murray from the Chatty Cafe Scheme to share some chatter and natter. So I'm getting used to my new surroundings. I am in an area of London called Bayswater, and my guest today is in an area of the UK called
Windsor.
Windsor.
Yes, quite near to Windsor. Just in a small village outside Windsor, to be exact.
Is it prestigious? Is it exciting to be living right by the castle?
It sounds odd. You kind of forget that that's on our doorstep, if I'm honest. What's amazing is Windsor Park, which is kind of the land around the castle, which the public can access. And that's awesome. I go on lots of bike rides there, walks. But the whole castle thing, yeah, it's there, but it's good. But I don't really think about it too much, if that makes sense.
It's funny because I lived in LA for so long, and when people be like, "Oh my God, I'm going to come visit. Can we go to Hollywood Boulevard?" And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, Hollywood Boulevard's here."
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's great, but yeah, there's lots of other elements to it as well that are really good.
Now you're here today to talk about something called the Chatty Cafe Scheme.
Yes.
And I want to start with this. Yes, I want to start with this. It's a fantastic name. Where did the name come from? Specifically, why did you all choose the word scheme? I love a scheme.
Yeah, so the organisation, we're a non-profit group, and it started back in, well, the idea came about in 2017. And just to give you a quick background, it was when my sister Alex, she just had a new baby, and she was really hit with quite strong feelings of loneliness. And she was walking around cafes in Manchester where she grew up, where we grew up. And she just noticed one day going into various different cafes, she spotted that people would just be sat, often on their own at tables, just looking really fed up. And it got her thinking, wouldn't it be great if spaces like cafes designated a table as what we call a chatter and natter table, where if people wanted to get together and chat in that moment, they could. So we came up with that idea, the chatter and natter table, and then kind of off the back of that, knocked around some ideas for what the organisation could be called. And that's when we came up with the name, the Chatty Cafe Scheme. Just to mention, actually, because I've heard this before, I think the word scheme, does that have a slightly different meaning? Is that got a slightly more negative meaning in the US?
A little bit so, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have the negative sort of links here, I don't think. So is that something that came up, funnily enough, when we spoke to someone from the US only a few months ago? But here it's in the context of the Chatty Cafe Scheme, it's just sort of describing like the Chatty Cafe group, rather than, so it's not really seen as something negative here, but a bit more positive if anything.
Well, you were also mentioning Chatter and Natter tables. So those are not US. We use the word chatter. But
yeah,
what is natter?
This is something else that's been brought to our attention. So the word natter is very commonly used, much more in the northern parts of England. And to natter is means just to chat. So if you were meeting up with a friend, you might say, "Oh, do you want to pop round for a natter?" And that is, so it's just a play on the word. Again, commonly used in the north of England. We have talked a lot about maybe in the future sort of dropping that term, because it's obviously not as well known as we thought it was. But for now, we call the tables a chatter and natter table. And they're the name of the actual activities in cafes. But the organisation is called the Chatty Cafe Scheme.
What I love about it is it's a really simple idea, and I say that in the most proactive, kindest way, because again, somebody hears the word simple and they think, oh, it's not very elevated, right? It's not very, It wasn't well thought out. But this is well thought out because it comes back to a basic central idea that we've been talking about all year so far, which is community. So I want to ask you, what does community mean to you? What does community mean to this organization?
Yeah, it's a good question. In terms of community, so by offering these chatter and natter tables in spaces like cafes, we also run them in pubs and also in some community centres. We really hope that we can help create a sense of community for people. It might be that someone has just moved to a new area and perhaps doesn't know anybody.
Like me.
Well, yeah, and could, find out about these tables in hospitality venues near them, go along and speak to somebody, and then actually, hopefully find that they can connect with other people. It might be that they just chat to people in that cafe at that time, maybe stop in for 5 minutes or stay for an hour. It really doesn't matter, but it's just trying to offer people that sense of connection in a space where it's not kind of a no agenda space. It's not a group that's sort of set up, for people, for example, who are over 55, or maybe people only who are, I don't know, disabled or something. The aim is just to completely mix people up in these spaces, and just to provide the opportunity to chat about anything. It could be about, what's the weather like, what was on TV last night. It's just recognizing that actually for some people having a little chat can really brighten their day. And hopefully it can go on to make people feel that, they do have more of a kind of sense of place and connection in the area that they live. I should mention, Steve, an important point actually, that with these tables, we have a national volunteering programme that we run, and we train local people to volunteer to host the Chatter and Natter tables. So our aim is that all these tables always have, for sort of 1 or 2 hours a week at the same day and time every week, a volunteer hosting them. So obviously it's really, really, it's a much better experience if a member of the public can go along and there is a volunteer there, to chat to, if they would like to go out and access that group.
Right, because it's not two strangers sitting down and then being forced to start a conversation, right? It's somebody from your organization there in place.
Absolutely, yes. So we train our volunteers around, ideas for conversation starters, what to do if perhaps someone is maybe quite emotional, that they could be signposted to other sort of crisis support services. So we want to create that welcoming, safe space in sort of a cafe setting. But obviously, ideally, we want to make sure that there is a volunteer there to welcome people if you'd like to go along.
So Abby is talking about all these amazing volunteers they have that they train and get ready to go into these cafes to chatter and natter it up, scheme it up even. And one of those volunteers is my friend John Ford. Hello, John Ford.
Hello.
That's it. Let's end right there.
I said, John's a simple man. He speaks very, very eloquently in 1 or 2 words.
So, John, tell us this. We want to know, why this organization? What about it spoke to you?
Well, I had just moved to an entirely new place, and we were coming out of the pandemic. And obviously, there was just the conversations about isolation and loneliness. And I saw a morning program that was highlighting during the holidays how to donate your time, the Million Minutes donation. And one of those organizations that came up for how to use your time was the Chatty Cafe. And I looked into it, and it just kind of hit all the boxes. For if you like to talk, if you want to help people, and you like coffee. And I was like, oh, boom, boom, boom. And when I looked into it, I was a little nervous because I thought, like, well, are we supposed to be therapists? Are we supposed to, be interventionists? And that wasn't the case. It literally was what it says. Just be available at a coffee shop for anybody that wants to talk. And I took it from there. And it's been a few years now.
Let's be clear here. You said you moved to a new place. That makes us think you just changed apartments or homes. Can you be a little more specific?
Yes, I moved from the United States to London, England. And while not a big culture shock in the sense that, everybody speaks the same language that they invented, I'll give them that shout out. But also, any place you go new, you're starting over. You're starting over any age you're at. And I myself was probably feeling a bit of that isolation, a bit of that need to connect, and, trying to rebuild a professional network was one thing, but also just trying to connect with the world around me. And the good thing about living in London is that you're just surrounded by, as I call it, the United Nation of culture at any given moment. And in so, there's also the sense that people come from a place of maybe feeling isolated for different reasons. Yes, the pandemic played its part, but other people just simply maybe for language barrier reasons, for age reasons, and several other factors just maybe feel a little isolated. And now it is a little strange to be sitting at a table and just soliciting conversations, especially because, you wear this lanyard and you have a little table tent that says Chatty Cafe. People just, maybe just walk past you thinking you're selling cell phones or you work for the coffee shop. And, but I found it just effective to just start talking to people and using the sort of the safety net of having this little lanyard made it look like I was less of just a stranger and more maybe coming from a place.
Did you feel less lonely when you first started doing this? Have you felt less lonely as you've continued going on with it?
I think so. I mean, I've been here a few years and I have sort of made my way a little better, but I think what's interesting to me is that I always want to make sure that I approach these people, and I was very vocal about this with the organization in our the meetings that we'd have, the Zoom calls where volunteers get together and share experiences. And there was a feeling from me, and the organization felt it too, to move away from sort of advertising it as a balm for loneliness, because I think that sort of puts people off. I mean, who wants to just come up to a stranger and admit, I'm lonely, I need conversation? And who wants to advertise that? Hey, are you lonely? It seems like a stigma. And so I really wanted to just, make it look like, hey, this is a place, it is separate from the venue. So it's not, sanctioned by the company, the coffee shop that I chose. But I wanted it to feel like, hey, if you want to have a chat, sometimes chatting with a stranger can just be kind of fun. And I always approached it with projecting like, I like to chat. If they may looked at me and said, wow, that's a lonely guy and he's doing that, then that might be the case. I don't know.
Last thing I want to ask you, John, what does community mean to you?
I think community is when people step out that door, wherever they're at, that they realize that they've immediately kind of joined an ecosystem that they're sort of responsible to. And that means anything you see in your periphery, you should be aware of. And meaning it could be as simple as, letting someone pass, opening a door for someone, picking up garbage. It's literally looking at the world that you're in that moment as you go about your day and realizing that you and likewise, you should feel the same from others, but proactively just be willing to sort of step up to make every square inch of that place around you better. And it's tough to do. And sometimes people are in their own mindset and they're in a hurry. I get that. But I think being community is being aware of, it's as simple as being aware of the world around you. And how you can affect it, because it affects you.
It's interesting too, because there's an accessibility going on here, but there's also, there's just a general loneliness. We have the ability in the palm of our hands at any point. People listening right now to this are doing it themselves, right? You're listening, you're doing 6 other things. I always call this show good inactive, active listening.
Yeah.
When you're listening to something as like a book on tape, or you're listening to a podcast, you listen to a song, and then suddenly you start thinking about something, and then it's like a minute later, and you're like, wait, and then you hear the voice of the person, you're like, oh wait, what were they saying? You have to back up.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot.
It is interesting to me because it comes back again to why, and this is what I want to ask you, why are we lonely?
I think if you look at the research on this, incredibly broad topic, there's a few sort of emerging themes. I think one of them, in some ways, has been called out, that the rise in technology has actually bizarrely made people, in some instances, feel less connected to others, especially maybe the older generation that aren't often as tech savvy.
I also think the younger generation is feeling a pressure of keeping up with what they're seeing, you know what I mean, and what people are doing. But keep going, yes.
Yeah, the way people can present their lives on social media can make sometimes people feel quite intimidated, that maybe they're not living that life that it looks like everyone else is doing. But also, things like when you go into supermarkets, quite often the tills have been replaced by self-service checkouts.
Right.
Lots of like our local banks have shut down. So quite a lot of these sort of traditional touch points for human connection have actually been phased out. Of course, a massive one as well is the fact that so many more people are working from home now. So they're not having often that same interaction day to day, which, years ago people were getting more in office spaces. So I think that's led to certainly what we found. And when my sister set up the Chatty Cafe Scheme, she really felt that there was a real gap in services that has specifically set up to tackle loneliness. There just didn't really seem to be anything out there that fit that need, which was very much why, as a group, we went on to set up the Chatty Cafe Scheme to try and address this issue that just seems to, especially since the COVID pandemic, just seems to have got, worse and worse.
It's funny we were talking about those checkout center, tills and all that stuff, but we do it all ourselves, right? I always laugh. It's like in the United States, when you do that, you go out and then they want to see your receipt and check your work at the door. So there's like an employee at the door in the United States in a big mega store like Costco. And I'm always just like, no. If you're making me do the job, you're just going to have to trust that I did. Like, I always say no. I'm like, I'm not stopping. Like, what is that? It's such an interesting.
Funny, isn't it?
Yeah. Here's a question I have for you actually too is, have you found, since you started doing this, have you become more open to strangers? Have you become more extroverted?
It's definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone in many ways. Even so I do sort of site visits where I go out to these cafes where volunteers are hosting the tables and go and talk to people. And, that's been really good for me, I think, just getting out and about and going to different parts of the country. What's amazed me is, I guess I had a bit of a preconceived kind of view that lots of people going to these tables would be older people. And I've been surprised at seeing that actually there are people in their 20s, 30s, 40s that are going along, which is great to see. But yeah, I think I've become more aware that loneliness can affect so many different people at different stages of their lives, which I didn't necessarily think at the start. I feel like that's not really answered your question, Steve. Did I go off?
No, it did. No, it did. It's a kind of a reflective mirror at times. You know what I mean? When we see things out in the world where we're like, how did I not see that? You know what I mean? It's obvious things at times, right? It's like, obviously, and we've talked about this a lot on this show, is like, of course, we started this show during the pandemic. One of the reasons I started it was to connect to people, to create a community, and to do it safely because I couldn't go sit face to face. But I think there is something so wonderful, so again, simple in
it's
just
so
the need. Yeah, to just talk.
Yeah.
To just sit down face to face with another human being and get past the I'm going to, we talk about this, right? I'm going to post this picture, which as of me on the streets, I'm on Positano on a beach in Italy, and I've manipulated the photo with several filters to make myself look even better. I have a full head of hair all of a sudden, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to that simple ethos, it's just to mention as well something that Alex talked about when she set up the Chatty Cafe Scheme. It was something that kind of struck me. She said at the time she was feeling so lonely and that she just wanted to talk to another person. And she said, so she could go from feeling invisible to visible. And I think that is quite a powerful statement, and something that you can't always underestimate the power of just, someone maybe has spent all weekend on their own and hasn't actually talked to another person for a few days. And we hear this in feedback, the fact that they can go along to one of these tables on like a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever day and just feel like they have a reason to get out of the house. They've got a reason to connect with somebody else. And actually the benefits from that can actually be really, really big. Again, such a simple thing. And actually we know from our feedback that creating these opportunities for connection, it can actually help someone it can be quite preventative, where offering these types of services, it can stop a person from actually hitting crisis point, which, severe loneliness and isolation, we know can lead to.
Extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that we're talking about all this, but I really love that we're talking about your sister Alex and just really just ripping her apart, just looking at her life and being like, okay, Alex was pretty messed up, so she went to get a coffee. I'm kidding.
Yeah, but also the good thing about Alex in terms of what led to this, she's worked as a social worker in the UK, and she found that in her job, quite often she was supporting people with lots of challenges, but time and time again, she noticed that one of the common themes in a lot of the people she helped, that they were very isolated and lonely. And she often wondered if you could sort of tackle that, would it alleviate perhaps some of the other challenges? And that's something that she really felt quite strongly. If you got, if someone felt more connected, more part of a community, that the impact on their mental well-being and physical well-being, could potentially be really good.
And just being heard.
Oh yeah, totally.
I think that's something we always all want without judgment. I always say is like, I've always said about my relationship with my own husband is like, I can show him what I call my ugly, which again, talking about terms, that means a whole different thing in the United States to certain people, but we won't even go there right now. But when you show, if you're able to show, your not darker side, but not your prettiest side at the moment without judgment, and just to be able to get it out there, it's a really powerful thing. Now, I read this on your site. Over 75% of people in a recent survey say they'd like to have more in-person conversations and communication. I find this so fascinating that the number is that high, because I know, and you do too, you go out to a restaurant, you look around and there's couples and groups of people, and what is everybody doing? Everyone's talking, staring down at their phone, clicking on their phone at the same time, or they're not talking. They're just in their zone. And so I find that number so incredible, which is also a great thing for your organization, because you have 3/4 of a population that want to communicate. They just need the area to do it in.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where we really feel that hospitality venues like cafes and pubs and community centres they could probably be better used to really offer those opportunities for connection, which is obviously, exactly what we're trying to do. So we're hoping to sort of work with as many cafes and pubs as we can, and to just get as many volunteers in them, and just to keep plugging away at it. So hopefully there can be one of these Chatter Natter tables in every town across the country, so that, people, wherever they are, have that opportunity to connect and feel better.
Well, hold on a second. We got to admit something here, you and I, and no one listening. Everyone, don't listen to this part. Do not listen. I'll say it quietly. The conversation at the cafe versus the pub, I feel like those would be two very different conversations, because if I have a coffee versus a pint, it might be a different level of, you know what I mean? Like, but I think it's both are needed, because it's where people feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. That's no issues in terms of, I agree with what you're saying. It could be a different conversation, but equally there's lots of people who might want to connect via a service like ours, but just can't do it in the day. They might work Monday to Friday and
sure,
not be able to get out. So for some people, offering evening sessions, and also, to be honest, a lot of it depends on the availability of the volunteer. We totally work around what they want to do as well.
Now, you're in over 900 cafes UK wide.
Yeah, and we have set up, we've got an amazing lady who wanted to get this off the ground in Australia. So we've got it running over there as well. And I think it's in about 200 cafes, mainly in the Melbourne area in Australia. And we're also working with a lovely lady who's trying to get it off the ground in America as well. although it's very much in its infancy over there. Because at the end of the day, the concept is so simple that, you know, if we can work with people who want to get it launched in other countries, then, you know, we're absolutely happy to support that.
Where do people find you all? How do they become a volunteer if they live locally?
So our process is a cafe registers on our website to join the Chatty Cafe Scheme. We then send them out a poster to put on their wall that says, you know, we want to join this initiative to bring people together, and would any of our customers be happy to give an hour, 1 to 2 hours a week to help host the table? So more often than not, the volunteers are people who are already familiar with the cafe, live in that local area, see the poster, and then they sign up to register to volunteer on our website. We do all the training on Zoom online and then match that volunteer back to the cafe to get started. So that's the most common sort of process of how it gets going. We then send a pack, like a yellow Chatty Cafe table sign to mark the space. We send that to the cafe, and then the volunteer cafe, with our support, arranges a day and time of the week to get started. And then we then work with the volunteer to promote the sessions locally. So often the volunteers put things on like local Facebook pages, can put posters up. We send the volunteer the posters to go up in, you know, community notice boards, one in like the local doctor's surgery, you know, as much as the volunteer can, to raise awareness, to let people know in the area this is happening and would they like to, you know, to go along.
We close these shows with 2 questions. Don't panic. They're easy. Question number 1, who inspires you?
To be honest, my sister's a really big inspiration, the one that came up with this idea. And I mean, I work on the Chatty Cafe Scheme day to day, but my sister that founded it, she's actually on our board of directors, but is high up in social work, so she doesn't work on it day to day. But she's someone who, you know, has really, really believed in this vision and has stuck to her guns. And, you know, just she's inspiring in the way she's so clear in her vision. And I think that kind of helps us day to day stick to our mission in terms of what we want to achieve. I don't know who else inspires me. There's loads of people. I'm always looking at like YouTube videos for things like inspirational life advice and stuff like that.
And the final question is not a question. It is a statement to finish. It is the way we have finished over 225 shows. No pressure. Answer any way you want. It goes like this. Tell me something good.
Tell you something good. Live like, can it be like a quote that I've made up?
Of course.
Okay. Practice gratitude. Live life to the full. You absolutely never know what's around the corner, so try not to get dragged down by negativity and stay positive as much as possible.
Thank you both, Abi and John, for sharing the good of the Chatty Cafe Scheme. For more info, go visit the chattycafescheme.co.uk. It's a lot, I know. You can find a link right to it on our site, worldgonegoodpodcast.com. Next time on World Gone Good.
We started at my house and we were reviewing vegan food, you know, like products. And at that time, Paige wanted our show to be called The Shift Show.
Say that really fast 5 times.
Oh, you shit show. And let me tell you, she was serious about that name because I kept saying, that doesn't sound right.
Paige Parsons Roach and Sherry Johnson share one of those 1 in a million friendships. These 2 BFFs have shared everything from fighting over the air conditioning at the gym, to raising plant-based families, to embracing their own big life changes. And here's the really cool part. They are laughing their way through almost all of it, this is the episode you're going to want to share with your own BFF. Until then, be good.